Today I'm going to be swapping the careers of Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews, meaning Connor will be joining his hometown team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Austin Matthews is going to have to live in Alberta. The weather may not be nice there, but the team definitely is. You have a good core around you. I'm sure you'll do fine. McDavid is a 99 overall, and he's going to be on a line with William Nylander and Mitch Marner, a very good first line. Meanwhile, the Oilers are absolutely stacking their first line with Austin Matthews, Leon Draisaitl, and Zach Hyman. This is also a very good first line. Toronto would have a great regular season. They would finish top of the Atlantic with a 50, 28, and 4 record, while the Oilers would have an okay regular season, not great, but 41, 33, and 8 was their record, and they would finish third in the Pacific. McDavid would obviously lead our team in points, 54 goals, 111 points, followed by Mitch Marner, William Nylander, John Tavares, and Ryan O'Reilly. We only had one 80-point scorer, and that was Connor with 111 points. Mitch Marner, 76, is not going to cut it. Matthews would have 46 goals and 109 points. Meanwhile, Draisaitl would have 108. Zach Hyman had 83. Nuge had 64. Evander Kane, Kyler Yamamoto. The Oilers would have 3 80-point scores, and Nuge would hit 60. So Zach Hyman outscored Mitch Marner. McDavid would have the most points in the entire NHL, followed by Austin Matthews, Leon Draisaitl, Alexander Barkov, and Nathan MacKinnon. Alex Ovechkin would actually have the most goals, followed by Connor McDavid, Nikita Kucherov. Nazem Kadri had 47. Okay. Austin Matthews, Mikko Rantanen, and Nathan MacKinnon. Nazem Kadri came here to play. My God, 47 goals, 83 points. He had 87 2 years ago with Colorado, but only 27 goals. He almost scored near 50 goals. Okay, Kadri, 32 years old. Maybe that wasn't a bad trade for Calgary after all. Toronto is going to be playing the Montreal Canadiens in round number 1, and the Oilers are going to be playing the LA Kings. Neither team would go on to win the Stanley Cup. That would be the Carolina Hurricanes, as they beat Colorado in 6 games. Toronto would end up getting swept by Tampa in round number 2, and the Oilers, they would lose in the first round in 7 games. I guess that game 7 round 1 curse continues for Austin Matthews. I guess wherever he goes it follows, because yet again he loses in a game 7 in round number 1. Connor would have 6 goals and 11 points in the playoffs. Austin Matthews would have 2 goals and 5 points in the first round. Austin Matthews would take home the Ted Lindsay and the Hart Trophy. Meanwhile, Connor would take home the Art Ross, and Ovi would take home the Maurice Richard. The Norris to Victor Hedman. The Conn Smythe would go to Brent Burns, and Sid the Kid would take home the Selke. McDavid is obviously still a 99 overall, and he's still on the first line with William Nylander and Mitch Marner. John Tavares is officially washed. Matthews has jumped up to a 96 overall, still on the first line with Leon Draisaitl and Zach Hyman. The Toronto Maple Leafs would finish third in the Atlantic with a 42, 27, and 13 record. Meanwhile, the Edmonton Oilers would not even make the playoffs. They would finish 6th in the Pacific with a 42, 35, and 5 record. I'm not going to cap. They had the same amount of wins as us, but they did not even make the playoffs. Wow. I guess the Pacific was just too good this year. 52, 48, 42. Just too many regulation losses for the Oilers. 35. McDavid would have 53 goals and 116 points, followed by Mitch Marner with 86, William Nylander 79, John Tavares 71. We had a bit more scoring this season. Evgeny Dadonov had 25 goals. Okay. Matthews would have a down season, not even leading his team in points. That would be Draisaitl with 81. Matthews had 45 goals and 74 points, followed by Zach Hyman with 63, Nugent Hopkins with 62, Evander Kane 55. Yeah, definitely a down year for Matthews. He did have 45 goals, but 74 points, that will not cut it. Leon Draisaitl showed up though, 81, almost a point per game. McDavid would lead the entire NHL in points yet again, followed by Alex Ovechkin, Dylan Larkin with 98, Kucherov, Barkov, and Tage Thompson. Alex Ovechkin yet again had the most goals, this time with 58, followed by Connor McDavid and Nikita Kucherov. And the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to be playing the Tampa Bay Lightning in round number 1, and we already know the story. The Oilers did not make the playoffs, so they're not going to be playing anybody. Matthews is already on the golf course, and the game 7 curse continues for Toronto as they lose in the very first round to Tampa in 7 games yet again, and Vegas would go on to win the Stanley Cup as they beat the Red Wings in 5 games. Connor McDavid would take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy. Ovi yet again takes home the Rocket. Quinn Hughes would take home the Norris. Stevenson would take home the Conn Smythe, and Crosby with back-to-back Selkies. McDavid is obviously still a 99 overall on the first line with William Nylander and Mitch Marner, who are now a 90 and a 93 overall. We also have a +5 on the first line. Austin Matthews is a 95 overall on the first line with a 96 Draisaitl and a 86 Hyman. Wow, Zach Hyman really fell off. Toronto would end up finishing third in the Atlantic yet again, going 42, 28, and 12. The Oilers would also finish third in their division, going 46, 33, and 3. But they are very close. Edmonton had more regulation wins wins, but Toronto had more overtime losses. So technically, Toronto did finish 1 point ahead of them. Connor would absolutely explode this season. 58 goals, 129 points, followed by William Nylander, 87, Mitch Marner, 81, Calle Jarnkrok, 60, and John Tavares, 59. Matthews would put up 47 goals and 87 points, followed by Draisaitl's 86 and Nugent Hopkins, 75. Dylan Holloway had 65, huge upgrade for the Oilers. I mean, it was never a fair fight to begin with. McDavid absolutely clears Matthews, but I said, you know what, let's switch their careers and see how differently it would be. McDavid, yet again for the third year in a row, would have the most points in the entire NHL, followed by Nikita Kucherov, Jack Hughes, Matthew Barzal, and Braden Point. McDavid would have a 10-goal lead on second place to have the most goals in the NHL, with 58, followed by Kucherov's 48, and Matthews' 47, so Matthews did come in third place for goal scoring. Not a bad year overall. I guess goal scoring was down, and McDavid is just from another world. The Toronto Maple Leafs are going to be, oh my god, we're playing Florida in round number 1. Well, there's the season, boys, and the Oilers are going to be playing the Seattle Kraken in round number 1, and we all got the matchup that we were hoping for. We have Connor McDavid and the Toronto Maple Leafs versus Austin Matthews and the Edmonton Oilers. This is going to be one hell of a series. Who's going to take home the Stanley Cup? Toronto was down 3-0 in the series, but somehow clawed their way back to force a Game 7 in Toronto Stanley Cup Final. Will they complete the comeback, or is Austin and the Oilers going to spoil it? Austin Matthews versus Connor McDavid, Game 7. And somehow the Toronto Maple Leafs have just completed the greatest comeback of all time, as they were down 3-0 in the Stanley Cup Final, but somehow squeak out a Game 7 victory on the backs of John Tavares and Connor McDavid, who were absolutely huge. No surprise here, Connor McDavid is your Conn Smythe winner. Him and John Tavares went absolutely bananas, and the choking continues for Austin Matthews. And here he comes, Captain Connor McDavid, coming to lift the Stanley Cup for his hometown team and for the first time in his career. Connor McDavid now is a Stanley Cup champion. Connor McDavid is in fact him. The Ted Lindsay, the Maurice Richard, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy. Also the Conn Smythe. Crosby with his third straight Selke. What is going on right now? After winning the Stanley Cup, Connor McDavid still is a 99 overall. On the first line with a 90 William Nylander and a 93 Mitch Marner. John Tavares is completely washed, and we picked up Jonathan Toews. Edmonton has decided to change things up as they put Leon Draisaitl on the wing and Matthews down the middle, along with Yamamoto now on the first line. It looks like Zach Hyman has either left or got traded. Either way, he's not on the Oilers anymore. Toronto would end up having a great regular season. They would go 50, 27, and 5, which was good enough for second in the Atlantic. Meanwhile, the Oilers would finish first in their division, going 44, 32, and 6. Yeah, the Atlantic division is much stronger than the Pacific. 44 wins was at top of the Pacific. Meanwhile, 44 wins would not even make the playoffs in the Atlantic. McDavid would have another great year, almost 60 goals, 59, and 122 points. Followed by Mitch Marner's 91, William Nylander 84, John Tavares 59. Yeah, it drops off from here. Our big three were producing this season, 84, 91, and 122. Leon Draisaitl would lead the Oilers in points with 97, followed by Austin Matthews 93, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins 80, Kyler Yamamoto had a big year, 74 points, 26 goals, and Dylan Holloway had 62. Matthews, though, would have the most goals on the team with 47. McDavid yet again leads the entire NHL in goals and points, followed by Nikita Kucherov with 103, Patrick Kane 102, Alexander Barkov hit 100 points, Braden Point and Marty Necas all hit 100 points. For goals, it was Connor McDavid, then Nikita Kucherov, Vladimir Tarasenko on Chicago with 48, then Austin Matthews with 47, Timo Meier, and Jason Robertson. Toronto is going to be playing the Boston Bruins in round number 1, and the Edmonton Oilers will play the Vancouver Canucks. Toronto would end up losing in Game 7 of round number 1 to the Boston Bruins, and the Oilers would lose in the second round in 7 games to the San Jose Sharks. The Ottawa Senators would go on to win the Stanley Cup, beating Winnipeg in 5 games. Connor McDavid would take home the Ted Lindsay, the Maurice Richard, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy. Conn Smythe would go to Brady Tkachuk. And Crosby has turned into the greatest defensive player of all time. McDavid is still a 99 overall, with William Nylander being a 90 and Mitch Marner a 94. The Oilers have put Matthews back on the wing, along with Draisaitl down the middle and Yamamoto on the other wing. So a 96, a 96, and an 87. Toronto would end up finishing first in their division with a 54, 23, and 5 record. And the Oilers would also finish first in their division with a 46, 28, and 8 record. McDavid would go absolutely bananas yet again, 60 goals, goals, 126 points, followed by William Nylander's 86, Mitch Marner 84, John Tavares 76, a bounce back year for him, and David Kampf 63. Matthews would have a 50-goal season and 78 points, followed by Leon Draisaitl with 75. Bit of a down year for him. Nugent Hopkins with 73. I can't even pronounce that name, but he had 61 points. Absolutely no surprise here. McDavid had the most points in the entire NHL, followed by Pettersson, the GOAT, Nathan MacKinnon, and Nikita Kucherov. Nathan MacKinnon would end up having 68 goals, which led the entire NHL, followed by Kucherov and McDavid. We had 3 60-goal scorers this season. Toronto is going to be playing the New Jersey Devils in round number 1, and the Oilers will play the Winnipeg Jets. You literally cannot make this up. The Toronto Maple Leafs again are going to be playing the Edmonton Oilers in the Stanley Cup Final. We have Connor versus Austin yet again. Will Connor win his second Stanley Cup, or will Austin Matthews capture his first Stanley Cup of his career? And the Edmonton Oilers are going to beat Toronto in 5 games in the Stanley Cup Final. Austin Matthews now is a Stanley Cup champion. The series was not even close, to be honest. Edmonton won in 5 games. Leon Draisaitl is your Conn Smythe winner, not Austin Matthews. Big Captain Leon, baby. The German Gretzky won the Conn Smythe, and here comes the Stanley Cup. The captain of the Edmonton Oilers, Leon Draisaitl, coming to lift the Stanley Cup for the first time in his career, alongside his duo superstar, Austin Matthews, and the Oilers have finally done it. Unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to see Austin Matthews lift the Stanley Cup, because the computer is picking who they're passing to next, and they seem to be going to every shitty player on the Edmonton Oilers. Please pick Matthews. Oh my god. Give it to Jack Campbell. Yeah, we gave it to fucking Ray Ferraro's kid before Austin Matthews. Like, EA Sports, man, your game is so terrible. Don't pass it to the superstar player who scored 50 goals in the regular season. Pass it to the fourth-line player that's probably going to be out of the league next season. Anyways, there he is in front of the cup. Austin Matthews now is a Stanley Cup champion. EA Sports, it's in the game. McDavid would end up having a great playoff run, 18 goals and 33 points. Meanwhile, Matthews had 15 goals and 25 points, and Draisaitl had 29 with 11 goals. Connor McDavid is Connor McDavid. The GOAT, Nathan MacKinnon, would take home the Maurice Richard. The Conn Smythe, obviously, to Draisaitl. McDavid still, obviously, a 99 overall. Matthews is back down the middle at a 96 overall. It seems like every year they're flip-flopping between Draisaitl and Matthews being the centerman. Toronto would end up finishing first in their division yet again with a 50, 28, and 4 record. Meanwhile, the Oilers would finish second in their division with a 46, 31, and 5 record, only behind Vegas. McDavid would have 59 goals and 128 points, followed by William Nylander with 89 and Mitch Marner 82. Draisaitl would lead the Oilers in points with 91, followed by Austin Matthews 87. He had 38 goals, 1 less than Draisaitl. The Nuge had 74 and Yamamoto had 72. McDavid yet again leads the entire NHL in points. I feel like a broken record at this point. Followed by Buchnevich with 107 points, Tage Thompson, Jordan Kyrou, and the GOAT. Toronto will be playing Tampa Bay in round number 1, and the Oilers will be playing Seattle. Toronto will lose in the first round in 6 games, and the Oilers would also lose in the first round in 5 games. Columbus would go on to win the Stanley Cup as they beat Chicago in 7 games in the Stanley Cup Final. Zach Werenski would take home the Conn Smythe. McDavid is still a 99 overall. Matthews is still a 96 overall, along with Draisaitl at a 96 and Yamamoto at an 87. Toronto would end up not even making the playoffs. They would finish 44, 35, and 3. And the Edmonton Oilers would also miss the playoffs as they went 39, 36, and 7. Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews are down bad right now. McDavid would have 49 goals and 106 points, followed by Mitch Marner 89 and William Nylander 68. Austin Matthews would have his best season yet, 64 goals, 112 points, followed by Leon Draisaitl's 96 and Kyler Yamamoto's 77. Matthews would lead the entire NHL in goals and points, followed by Connor McDavid and Nathan MacKinnon. The Vancouver Canucks would go on to win the Stanley Cup, beating the Blue Jackets in 7 games. Matthews would take home the Ted Lindsay, the Rocket, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy. Pettersson would take home the Conn Smythe. Zegers would take home the Selke. McDavid is still a 99 overall, with William Nylander dropping down to an 89 and Mitch Marner 94. Matthews is a 96 overall, along with Draisaitl back at center at a 96 and Zetterberg at a 79. Who the hell is Nicholas Zetterberg? Regardless, he's on the first line with these two monsters at a 79 overall. Toronto would end up finishing first in their division with a 43, 31, and 8 record. I don't know how you can go from missing the playoffs to leading your division the very next season. The Oilers would also finish first in their division with a 55-24-3 record, a much better regular season. McDavid would have a down year, 45 goals, 85 points, followed by Mitch Marner, 84, and William Nylander, 78, but a major step back for McDavid. But Matthews would have his best season yet, 60 goals, 125 points, followed by Draisaitl's 119 and Zetterberg's 66. Matthews yet again had the most goals and points in the entire NHL, followed by Draisaitl, Connor Bedard, Quinn Hughes, and Nathan MacKinnon. The Oilers are going to be playing the Minnesota Wild in round number 1, and Toronto will be playing Philadelphia. Toronto would end up losing in 6 games in the first round, and the Oilers got swept. And the Minnesota Wild would go on to win the Stanley Cup, beating Carolina in 6 games. Austin Matthews is Austin Matthews. Jared McCann would take home the Conn Smythe. Marner and Nylander have both dropped down, Nylander to a 90 and Marner to a 92. Meanwhile, Connor is still a 99 overall. Matthews is still a 96 overall. Draisaitl a 95, and Zetterberg has jumped up to an 83. Toronto would have a great regular season, finishing first in their division with a 55-24-3 record. Meanwhile, the Oilers would finish third in their division with a 39-29-14 record. McDavid had a bounce-back season, 62 goals, 138 points. Mitch Marner had 111, William Nylander with 90. Leon Draisaitl would lead the Oilers, 34 goals, 86 points. Matthews had 85 and 48 goals, and Zetterberg had 67 points and 13 goals. A big drop-off from the top two. Dave-O would have the most goals and points in the entire NHL, followed by Jack Hughes, Mitch Marner, and Kyle Connor. Toronto's going to be playing the Columbus Blue Jackets in round number 1, and the Oilers will be playing the Vancouver Canucks. Toronto would make it all the way to the conference finals, but lose to Pittsburgh in 6 games, and the Oilers, well, they would get dealt by Calgary in 6 games in the second round. Pittsburgh would go on to win the Stanley Cup, beating Calgary in 7 games. Connor McDavid is back to being the best player in the world. Lynn would take home the Conn Smythe. McDavid has dropped down to a 98 overall. William Nylander is still a 91, and Marner is a 92. Matthews has dropped down to a 95 overall. Draisaitl also dropped down to a 92, and they have Roslovic on the first line at an 84. So the boys are at the tail ends of their careers now. Toronto would make the playoffs. They would finish third in the Atlantic with a 45-33-4 record. McDavid yet again showing his dominance, almost 60 goals and 132 points, while Marner had a big year, 105 points, and William Nylander had 94. Draisaitl will have the most points on his team with 99, followed by Zetterberg, who had 95, more than Matthews, who had 93. McDavid doing McDavid things, leading the entire NHL in points by like 20-some points, followed by Mitch Marner, his line mate, Dominic Ritchie, Leon Draisaitl, and Jack Hughes. Toronto will be playing the Buffalo Sabres in round number 1, and the Oilers, well, they are going to play the Vancouver Canucks. Toronto would end up losing in the conference finals to the Islanders in 5 games, and the Oilers, well, they got beat in 6 games by Vancouver. The Islanders would end up sweeping the Calgary Flames in the Stanley Cup Final. McDavid would take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy. The Conn Smythe would go to Noah Dobson. That is going to do it for this video, boys. Let me know in the comments below who had a better career with the opposite team, Connor McDavid or Austin Matthews. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And remember, don't be silly. Wrap your willy.